What's going on, gardeners? Today I'm going to show you all how to build an extra deep raised bed so you won't have to bend down as far when tending your garden, so it'll be a lot easier on your back.
If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon storefront and spread shop in the video description for a list of the gardening products I use and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated.
When planning the size of your raised bed gardens, dimensions are very important. Your raised bed can be whatever length you want. It can be as long as you desire. However, when it comes to width, I strongly recommend you do not make your raised garden beds wider than 4 feet. And that's because the average human can only reach about 2 feet long. So if you make your raised garden beds wider than 4 feet, you will not be able to reach adequately into the center of your beds. You can make them narrower if you want, but do not make them wider than 4 feet. When it comes to the depth of your raised bed gardens, that is a bit of a trade-off. I make all of my raised bed gardens on my property out of 2x8, so that means they are 7 1/4 inches deep. And that is great for me because it's the cheapest and easiest to build and to fill because they're as shallow as possible. However, I'm also a lot younger and I can still bend down very easily and tend my garden. If you want to design a raised bed structure that is easier on your back, you will want to build them up higher. However, there's a trade-off with that as well. If you make your raised beds too deep, your vegetables can grow so tall that they're hard to reach. Also, that means more lumber and more materials to build and more dirt to fill, so the expenses can add up very quickly, so you need to plan your depth very carefully. I'm building this raised garden bed for Brittany's parents, and I'm making it extra deep so it will be easier for them to bend over and tend to their garden. But I'm also putting a rail system on top so they'll be able to comfortably sit on the edge of the raised garden bed as well. I'm making this bed 2 2x8s deep, plus the 2x4 on top as the railing system, which is exactly 16 inches deep. I think this is the perfect depth for them to be able to tend their garden more easily and comfortably sit on the raised bed without it being too tall that they won't be able to reach the produce. In this video, we will be building one raised garden bed that is 10 feet long by 4 feet wide by 16 inches deep. So here is the bill of materials. To build our raised garden beds, we are going to need 4 10-foot long 2x8s, 2 8-foot long 2x8s, 1 8-foot long 4x4, 2 10-foot long 2x4s, and 1 8-foot long 2x4. The 2x8s and 4x4s are ground contact rated micronized copper azole pressure treated lumber, which is non-toxic and perfectly safe for building raised garden beds. They will not hurt your plants. The 2x4s are untreated because we're going to use them as a railing system to sit on, and pressure treated compounds can stain your pants. So we're going to use the untreated wood for them and then manually treat them later at the end of the video with boiled linseed oil. The other items that we'll need are 3-inch wood screws, boiled linseed oil, things like a paintbrush to apply the oil, and a sander, and of course you'll also need things like drills, drill bits, etc. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut all of our lumber to length. And in order to do that, we're going to pull a tape measure, we're going to make a mark at the top, and we're going to make a mark at the bottom. In this case, exactly at 4 feet. Then we're going to take a straight edge and we are going to connect those two marks so we are certain that we will have a perfectly straight line. Now we're going to cut them. And keep in mind, if you buy this lumber from Lowe's or Home Depot, they will cut a few of the boards to length for you if you ask. Keep in mind, while these are 8-foot long boards, they are not exactly 8 feet. As you can see, mine overhanged about an entire inch, so you need to double check all the measurements and cut them to the perfect length that's needed. All of my 2x8s are marked at the proper length, so they're all set up so I can cut them assembly line style. Now, when you do mark your boards, one thing I recommend is that you place all of your markings on the inferior or ugly side of the board. That way the markings will face inward into the raised bed and you can have the best face of the board facing outward for everyone to see when you assemble it. Now I'm going to begin cutting the 4x4s, and we're going to cut these 4x4s into 14.5-inch lengths because this is going to brace the two boards so you can secure them together and actually create a base as well for the railing system to screw into and support. Now you can see how the 4x4s are going to abut up against the 2x8s and secure them at the ends. This is going to leave a nice end for us to screw our railings onto while also providing more structural stability. And they were cut to 14.5 inches because the height of each 2x8 is 7¼ inches. And we cut 6 pieces of 4x4 total because we're going to use 4, 1 for each corner of the bed, and also 2 for the center lengthwise to give some additional support for the railing system. Now we're going to begin assembling the raised bed, and hopefully you can now see how this is starting to come together. We're using the 4x4 in the corner as the post that is going to be basically the structural strength member of the entire raised bed. And we are going to do our best to face the 2 sides that are the least knotted out, because that way when we drill into the face we have the smallest chance of encountering a knot. Then what I also did was I took a straight edge and I have 2 lines that are drawn right here. This is where we're going to install our screws. We want to make sure that we get screws into the center of this wood right here of the 4x4 and also at the edges of the bed. You may not need to put all of these screws in, but I'm going to do it just for additional structural support. So I'll have screws coming through the center of this piece of wood here, screws coming through the center of this piece of wood on the back side of the face, and also where the wood meets the bed like that. Now normally you would want to do this on as level of a surface as possible. All I have is a sloping driveway pad, so what I'm actually using is the cuttings from the edge of the wood as shims to make the beds level. Now that I have everything as level as possible, we are going to pre-drill 3 holes against each of these lines for 3 screws, 2 on each end of the board and 1 in the middle. And it's very important that you pre-drill, otherwise you risk splitting the wood, so do not skip this step. Now the frame of the bed has been completed and all 4 posts are installed at the corner for additional structural support. Now we are going to install the posts in the middle, which will provide not only additional structural support in the center of the bed, but also it'll have a foundation for us to put our railings on to sit on. So what I did was I marked the exact midpoint of this piece of wood right here, and then the midpoint of this 4x4. And I pre-drilled and I have my screws started, and now I'm going to simply finish the installation. And here is the frame of the raised bed garden. It has been built. Now that all the supports are installed, we simply have to build it up another level to make it deeper. Now we're going to begin building up the sides of the raised bed. So I have the first piece of lumber stuck right here, and I partially secured it so it would stay comfortably in place. As you can see, everything's squared up and cut evenly. Now we're going to begin securing it permanently. Now we're going to begin building the railing system for the raised bed so we have a nice place to sit on. Now here I have a piece of the 2x4 that I custom cut to the perfect length, and you can see we're going to secure them with screws here, here, and then 1 into this piece of wood on the corner as well, just to provide a little bit more structural support. So we need to line everything up as flush as possible, and then we will begin securing from the outside first. And now that this wooden board is secure, we're going to do the exact same thing to the other side. Now we've cut to length the other railings, which you can see are partially secured right here. They fit in perfectly between the end pieces of the railings, and I have the railing secured in 3 different locations. I have it at the front end, I have it in the direct center of the bed right here, where you have another one of those 4x4 supports that are going to give a little bit more support if you were to sit on the railing, and then again at the very end of the bed in the rear corner. So now we're going to go ahead and secure the screws down once and for all. And here is the final product. This is the raised bed with the railing system. And as you can see, it is pretty deep, which is going to make it a lot easier for people that don't want to bend over all the way to garden. And it has those wonderful railings to sit on. So overall, I think this turned out very, very well. It's not perfect. The ends aren't perfectly square because I'm a novice at this type of stuff. So just to make things clear, you don't have to be an expert to build one of these. I am as novice as they come. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not a fine piece of furniture. It's just a raised garden bed. Now the raised garden bed has been placed in its final position. This is the sunniest spot in the yard. Right now it's in shade, but that's because we're in the late afternoon. It's very sunny during the day and into the early afternoon, so it should be enough to grow crops sufficiently. Now we are going to treat the railings with boiled linseed oil, and that's because they are not pressure treated. Boiled linseed oil is non-food grade flaxseed oil, so it acts as a natural stain or sealant for the wood. And this is not rocket science, as they say. All we have to do is give the linseed oil a little shake, and we'll fill up some kind of cup or other kind of paint vessel. And then we will take our paintbrush and we will start applying the linseed oil to all of the untreated wood and all of the areas of wood that is exposed. And right here is the final result of the raised bed. Overall, I am very happy with the way it turned out. In fact, I'm questioning myself because Brittany's parents now have a nicer raised bed than any of my raised beds. This is super deep. I made sure to seal all the ends and the insides with the linseed oil, and overall, it looks great. Now remember, this raised bed garden design right here is just it's just an overall design. So you can customize this to the length and width and shape that you desire. So you can follow this as a general layout, but you don't have to stick to all of the measurements that I made. That being said, make sure you double check yourself, because if you customize any aspect of your bed, you will always want to measure twice and cut once, as they say. Always verify all of your measurements before taking a saw to it, because then it's too late and you can't go back. And that right there is how you can build a deep raised bed with a railing system to sit on to save your back for raised bed gardening. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you're notified when we release more videos like these. If you're curious about any of the things that I did in this video, ask them in the comments below. If you are curious about any of the products that I use in my garden in general, they are all linked down below in the Amazon storefront link in the video description. So expand that video description, click on the Amazon link, and you'll see everything I use in real life in my garden. While you're there, check out my spread shop for custom merch if you want to support the channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video.
Time to get rid of this old paper towel tube. Or is it? Oh, that was wonderful, Dale. That was wonderful, mister. That was wonderful. What a great display.